Okay, I'll deal with it, the words repeated. Through the chamber of the Galactic Council, delegated representatives from the galaxy's corner sat in disbelief. Some of their many eyeballs flicker in silently, others' mandibles twitching in time. The council had assembled in disbelief to talk about the mystery that is the human predicament, had been perplexed and, to put it plainly, afraid. Humans in the galaxy were strange for years. They lacked the physical strength, neither the modern weapons nor the Truic. Their ships were respectable among the Zarthans, although not really innovative, and yet, somehow, these odd creatures from the small blue planet persisted in being, even flourish in circumstances when no other species that the Council may have chosen to deal with the human escalation. Frontier conducted a number of raids and conflicts that had not been settled for the previous few months. The sum of the Truic and Drax Zarthan empires had been testing and prodding people, outposts anticipating a final withdrawal. Some people give up, or at least bargaining, but people had never gave up. A tall, slender extraterrestrial with Envoy was the name of the gelatinous head that Fricks as the spokesperson for the United. Captain Lyons, the Alliance broke the hush. His voice was a tiny whisper that he hissed, transported in some way to every area of the chamber that your species has often declined aid, diplomacy, or adherence to the Galactic Council procedures. We recommend a diplomatic. Captain Elias Lyons, standing in withdrawal, unarmed and alone themselves in the middle of the room, laughed, which was a disturbing sound. Humans seldom laugh. He placed his hand around any council member. With his hands behind his back, he relaxed his posture. Just pay attention steadily. You may call it what you want. A lion, he answered steadily, although when someone doesn't know where I'm from, respect our boundaries. We don't communicate. Don't call for assistance. We'll take care of it. Make this very easy, and we'll be done. You think we're weak when we negotiate, okay? I'll demonstrate what weak really looks like. Lyons, for example, before anybody could reply, pivoted on his heel and exited the council chamber, leaving us startled. Behind him, the folks were silent, declined to speak with the council, and a brief statement was, return to their home systems. Be down or be ready for the repercussions. Naturally, it was disregarded in the weeks that followed. The galaxy prepared for what they believed to be a minor dispute that was quickly resolved by the United representatives of the most developed empires in existence after the fact that humans were tactically outnumbered and outgunned. Weak, but what started off as a self-assured, swiftly entering human territory, began modestly and evolved into a nightmare. Scout ships scanning the outer seas in Dreek. Human territory's rings vanished at. The Drak High Command first rejected it. Small sabotage might be a problem with relays of communication, but after that the missing ships started to accumulate, and each try to find them or perhaps reclaim them was unsuccessful, followed by the Zarthans make a name for themselves by its accuracy and technology. skill were astonished to discover their weapon systems failing as if there were unseen hands interfering with their primary operations. Ships that attempted to engage were abruptly absorbed by massive EMP explosions that make even the Zarthan's most sophisticated destroyers usually dismissive. The Truic is helpless of strategies and favoring physical force. Dispatch troops in waves, certain that their sheer numbers would defeat the powers of humanity, but for each the Truic battalion that arrived there seemed to be human, or worse, human sniper. A commando laying under weight comes out of the human shadows are like ghosts, hit by a haphazard combination of technology and sheer boldness. They changed their strategy more quickly than any AI could figure out how to lead the aliens, always scurrying one step behind where the Zarthans used strategic formations. Guerrilla warfare was used by humans, and ambushes at unexpected locations, feasible when the Drex made an effort to shut off the human systems that people discovered places of weakness in their lines and disabled after being hit with surgical precision. Commander of supply lines and command ships, Rockvac is an actual veteran of 100 battles. He paced his command tent frantically, his armored fist slammed against A. How are they accomplishing this with the holographic map? He snarled, his voice echoing the around him. Truic policemen engaged in uncomfortable looks they're not accustomed to seeing there. The leader exhibits something other from. They marched into war with confidence, in an attempt to squash the human quickly, an incursion that ought to have required a. In a few weeks, we have heard stories that they are taking advantage of psychological warfare. A younger cop whispered, "Sir, avoiding. They make a contact, lay traps, and we discover we don't know what the guys who are rattled are." Observing Rockvac growl, "They're just. We humans have 3 times their firepower, yet they continue to rip. Please explain it to me via our lines." The place was silent, and nobody could. Nobody was able to understand why the people who seemed to be on the verge of the fatigue increased with each step, erratic and more persistent than the. Finally, the little information they provided, that people flourished under circumstances that might damage other species, limited hazardous terrain, resources, and a definite disadvantage in terms of technology and numbers. They didn't appear to care about any of it. The situation became more dire. The Galactic Council, observing from a distance, rushed to interpret the reports. Human assault teams are flooding in, adjusting to our strategies more quickly than expected. A commander from Zarin to report. His compound eyes were irritated, flicking angrily as he turned to face the Fricks. The council envoy is always pragmatic. Stroked his gummy head with a clear appendage, then modify your strategies. That the Zarthan almost snarled in. The issue is that they don't respond. Battle like us, their strategies are chaotic, unexpected, and unsettlingly efficient. Our AIS is unable to forecast their envoy. Frick's next step is to attempt to understand the circumstances. The council members looked at each other anxiously. The aim had been to just engage people, reject them and reestablish bounds, but people had disregarded them. All diplomatic efforts were evaded. Ambush and were now mysteriously shutting. Inside the core areas in the meanwhile across the human, words from the front lines spread like wildfire. It was more than simply a conflict, it was an announcement as a remembrance of Captain Lyons. Words had become more than just words, whispered over and over again. Calories, it's encrypted. I'll take care of it. Had evolved into more than just a reaction, it was a slogan as a call to action for people. This was more than simply a matter of retaining the ground. It was pride-related, and behind the scenes that earthly strategists saw with a silent sense of fulfillment planning. Counteractions that cost the alien chaotic troops on the ground a soldier in human form was aware that there was no. They battled like men as they turned around, had their concentration honed by the awareness that the whole cosmos was observing the chaotic galactic council, sending additional fleets in order to reclaim control, and even requesting more. The kind of troops they had were mercenaries, never depended on before, but with each the fresh fleet deployed to the front lines, humans continued to be disturbed by the news. Weren't just battling, they were real-time changing strategies and adaptation. Changes as easily as a wind. Darrow, the direction counselor, is an experienced, high-ranking Drex officials strategist. Sat in the war room, his face tight. The once powerful human holographic map. Areas suddenly teeming with unsettling red signs of wars lost are. In order to cope with the threat, he mumbled his just a whisper, but yet bearing the burden of his surprise, they are moving forward rather than backward. Zarthan, across the table from Admiral Glick. The agitated flashing of multifaceted eyes. Their power lies neither in quantity nor their strength, even in technology, is in unpredictable. It defies all expectations. The Drex officer is predicted by our models. Anxiously cleared his throat. Sir, ground forces don't seem to be. We have seen a rise in fatigue. Effectiveness, they don't only fire. Examine how they alter their tactics in the middle of fight, as if he hesitated not to complete the idea, as though there. Glix completed his voice, loving it. Dark with an increasing awareness each. The species we battled has a limit. Threshold that causes them to falter, but with people, there seems to be a strange appetite, as if war itself is something they can control to their benefit without the knowledge of the reaction from Council humanity was running beyond simple strategies. Earth's leaders positioned some of the best minds from experimental military schools, behavioral analysts and psychologists, collaborating to create not only plans, but concepts that might take use of the alien shortcomings in conventional methods. Teams could never have even fought on battlefronts. Examined records of extraterrestrial, noting in psychology and communications, patterns, routines, and intuitions that may be used against the people on the ground. Were doing a kind of. The galaxy had never seen such conflict before. psychologically persistent, and most importantly, erratic. Aliens' leaders discovered their supply. Lines cut in unexpected locations. There were ambushes where none had ever been. Expected a danger in any effort to. Retaliation was quickly defeated by a distinct approach to the enemy's lines. Were being drawn into corners and stretched. They fell into unnoticed traps. Captain Lyons, entering the field, oversaw a tiny recon squad located deep beneath, stealthily traversing Truick land under. They were just a handful under cover of darkness. Just a small portion of the troop RC. Garrisons were positioned close by, although they had the benefit of being aware of the precise location. Their adversaries' blind spots were located, and they took advantage of them. Fiercely over a shared tranquility with his crew. Was informed, and their voices remained steady. Lyons murmured on my mark, indicating he was flanked by 2 soldiers who moved, sawing through the Truick with precision. Encampment that disables sentes, similar to shadows, and setting up gadgets that would clog communication after the start of the skirmish. One of his guys, Captain, raised his voice in "We're reading more Drex, secure C. Units coming, they're organizing. Considering that the Truick forces may be establishing. Putting up a crossfire tactic," Lyons smiled. "Ideal, give them the impression that they have us. They're going to discover why people. The trap was laid, so play chess instead of checkers." The extraterrestrial troops flooded in within minutes. Unaware of the trap, they entered the clearing. Traps that are just out of sight. Communications were destroyed by explosions. Failed, and in the pandemonium that followed, Lyons and his group removed the perplexed soldiers, scattering them one by one. And confused, the result was pure. Reports of destruction poured into each council member is worse than the previous. Counselors looked over hollow video of Truick leaders racing into their ambushes themselves while seeing Zarthan fighters mysteriously shot down after going inside. They believed it to be a secure place from which humans weren't fleeing. They were playing tricks on their assailants, defying every traditional conflict. Plans to return to the Galactic Council headquarters, the remaining leaders collected every species once again, represented by their most talented emissary. Frick's gelatinous shape was present. Counselor, who was trembling with frustration. Darrow looked at his normally expressionless face, accompanied by an uncommon display of uneasiness. "Fricks, what are they doing at last?" said in a shaky voice. "Are they?" Dee sneered while playing with us. "Maybe this is a game to them, but it's something far worse is happening to us. Extinction if we are unable to prevent them from breaking us down piece by piece at that precise moment." A somber person emerged as a counselor. The CRA is one of the few advisors who has expertise in fighting on the ground, demonstrated his voice a growl that people can't defeat with enormous numbers that they overcome with concepts, with unrelenting, frustrating inventiveness. It compels us to respond rather than assault. This is not war as we understand it. Did he have trouble finding a word? Idea that worked and was ultimately resolved. With a shiver, a mental invasion. The council was dense with quiet chambers as his words' weight decreased, with the understanding that people weren't using conventional methods of combat. They were destroying the minds of their adversaries as much as their body, as well as their lack of indications of halting in the meantime on the front lines that the human warriors were given fresh directives now that their troops had breached extraterrestrial fortresses on Earth's. The instruction from the military headquarters said that caused a stir among the ranks. No retreat, no give up, just finished. They were to disperse due to tactical disruption. Their supply is disrupted by the extraterrestrial troops. Chains and proceed, leaving just chaos and bewilderment behind. The goal was no longer only about protecting. The goal of human space was to make every invasion of human territory by aliens penalty so harsh that the galaxy itself would reconsider any ideas of future disputes. Each interaction turned into a scene of the extraterrestrial troops' torture. People used their unpredictable nature as a weapon that never attacks in the same manner twice. Keep the opponent from feeling safe for more than a couple of hours in. The sound of alien camp might be 1 minute, engines sense the ground, shudder as if tanks were coming, and then a spooky hush that drove. They're angry with expectation across the several war-torn planets that people started using methods of psychological warfare that alien troops into a downward spiral of horrible, weird lights flashed across loudspeakers on the pitch-black plains at night, and a damaged alien blaring confused directives. Decoys that used languages and fake troops seemed believable in the dark, were positioned in key areas, attracting hostile fire and leading to internal strife between. Nobody in the ranks knew what was true or thought that humanity had aliens confined to their own anxieties, and spirits broke more quickly than they had expected. Whole battalions gave up without a battle, just in the hopes of being protected from whatever the next human plan was. News of these surrenders quickly circulated. Aliens who used to take pleasure in valor and honor started to forsake their posts, abandoning equipment and guns behind, running in an attempt to get away from the message of relentless human advance was. Evidently, they weren't only defending, they were showing the galaxy their house. What made them a death world species, a phrase that had previously seemed not much more than an interest, but for the terror at the Galactic Council was simply Darrow, a new counselor, is yearning for options. Again recommended a treaty, putting out a negotiated item with conditions, preferring people, but the suggestion was silenced when envoy Frick's gelatinous substance trembled. If we gave up. His voice was now hardly audible. What hope does the galaxy still have? Consider it a sign of weakness. They'll realize we're rather than united. They will open the door to. The council room opened, and a young, shaky Drex officer came in. Terror hardly disguised, he handed a data pad as created by the counselor using the counselor's most recent combat report. Read silently, his face displaying a combination of rage and intense, stomach-churning fear. He saw Fricks, then turned back to describe his voice when he eventually said anything. Hollow doesn't want us to give up. They don't even want our help, Fricks. Region, they're looking for something else. Fricks inquired in a voice just above A. Whisper D's eyes gazed up, troubled. Would want us to never forget what occurs when we confront a person and... All right, I'll take care of it. Deep inside the Galactic Council, Envoy Frick and Command Counselor D sat. Severe quiet when reading the most recent battlefield report, the anticipated war. To conclude with a quick victory had changed into a nightmare. The strategies used by humanity were anything like anything they had encountered. Erratic, persistent, and unsettling. Foreign powers renowned for their rigor and structure were breaking down under about the shadow ship rumors, and unseen commandos moved around destroying. Captain Lion is the face of their morale. The determination of humanity has become a symbol of the fear his words now caused them. The council members were still haunted. He meant it too, but I'll take care of it. People were progressing, and now even the most powerful empires in the galaxy were collapsing. Alien commanders in their way were plagued by tales that kept them awake. Numerous traps and ambushes that left their soldiers dispersed and shattered in a last. A control effort was made by Counselor Darrow, who called. The counselors reviewed for a meeting. Video of core strikes by humans. Areas that are each more destructive than the last time they tried everything. Countermeasure any strategy they were aware of. Nevertheless, people adjusted to the changing its techniques more quickly than any fleet. May reply, D turned to Fricks, face taut with dread and fury. They're tearing us apart, piece by piece. Shouting eyes stare at the empty map, displaying a different lost fleet envoy. Fricks shuddered. They're doing more than just breaching our defenses. As if on QA, they're breaking us. Captain, the gearbox flashed to life. Lion's expression was serene and, in the silent command room, resolute, the voice like a thread of steel through the Galactic Council was silent. We're finished. Withdraw all troops from the negotiation. Human space right now or confront the... Then, he halted, his intense stare. This is your last request, not a request. Council members' warnings. Counselor Shrock is renowned for having desperate looks. The hush was broken by his battle experience. They will ruin us all if we keep going. Instead of fighting for land, this is more than simply a conflict, therefore fight with purpose. Although it's their proclamation, Lions. A nasty ultimatum vanished from the screen. Some counselors were too proud to start the conversation, or too concerned about their own reputations. Called for a last stand, claiming that the power of the galaxy would eventually overtake these relentless people. More shocked by the results of the vote, the council divided each in order to withdraw. Member compelled to confront the actual scope of, within days, what they had unlocked. Alien fleets received commands, telling them to distance themselves from human. The council had approved the territory. For the first time in its history, defeat. The Council of the Galaxy gave way to an adversary back on Earth. News of the the triumph came when the retreat reached humanity. It was more than just a victory. Change humanity had shown itself is not only able to endure, but honorable. They had compelled the galaxy to recognize their power and tenacity in every human city afresh. Humans developed a feeling of pride, reinforced their boundaries with the message that was left. It was evident behind that Earth was no longer a world should be undervalued. Humanity possessed, confronted the galaxy, and by sheer determination had revealed to it a reality that, not to be disregarded, they weren't. They were either invaders or conquerors, survivors, and they would protect their. For mankind, this triumph was making a commitment to confront whatever, with a spirit unlike any other, beyond the stars. Species could be compatible.